welcome to my channel Dr. Genus. So as we promised, today we are going to discuss about the digestive system in human beings. So let's see what are the different parts of digestive system in human beings, what are the different organs, their function, how they will involve in the digestion process or nutrition in human beings. So the digestive system starts from the mouth and ends in the anus. So there in between there are different type of organs, enzymes and glands will be present. So let's see what are the importance of each and every organs, glands and hormones. So first is mouth. So the process of mouth is to intake the food, or which means ingestion. So in this process what happens, we are intaking the food with the help of mouth. Then let's see teeth. Teeth will help in the chewing of the food. The teeth will help in the chewing of the food. So we are having the dentition called 2, 1, 2, 3, which means if we divide our entire teeth into 4, the one part of the teeth, one part of contain 2, 1, 2, 3 dentition formula, which means we are having 2 number of which means our dentition we contain 2 number of incisors, canines, 1 number of canines, premolar 2 number and molar 3 number. So totally we will get 28 number of teeth in a adult human being. So this will be the dentition in humans. So next is called the tongue. The tongue will help in the swallowing of the food. So the tongue will help in the swallowing of the food. So when we intake the food, the teeth will grind the food or chew the food, and the tongue will swallow the food for the digestion, and it helps to take the food into the digestive canal in human beings. So next is called the salivary glands. The function of salivary gland is to produce salivary amylase. So whatever the words will end with the ASE. If it is called the suffix of the enzymes. Okay, so if it is end with the AAC, it is called the enzyme. So the salivary gland will produce salivary amylase. Salivary amylase is the enzyme which helps in the reduction or the degradation of starch into glucose. So what is the function of salivary amylase? Salivary amylase will help in the reduce or reduction of starch into glucose. Okay, so the starch is the food materials we are having as a part of the ingestion. After the ingestion, what happens? The teeth will grind the food. Here in grinding the food, the process is called a catabolism, which means the large particles of molecules will be divided into small number of or small sized particles. So that is called a catabolism. Okay, so after that what happens? The tongue will swallow the food. Swallow means which will be ingraded or which will be ingested into the digestive canal. So next is called the salivary glands. So the salivary glands function is what? Salivary glands will produce salivary amylase. Salivary amylase is the enzyme which helps to reduce the starch into sugar or glucose molecules. So with the glucose molecules, what we will get? We will get the energy. So the glucose molecules will be ATP, and the ATP will be converted into ADP. One phosphate molecule will be utilized by us. Then we will get the energy. So this is what happens in the first stage of digestive system. So esophagus is the next part of the digestive system in human beings. So what is the esophagus? Esophagus will act as a connection between mouth and stomach. So I told you mouth will be the first portion of the digestive system. Then later it comes to the esophagus. Esophagus will otherwise called as food pipe. So the food pipe is the other name of esophagus, in which the food will be transferred from the mouth to the stomach. So that part is called the esophagus. It is a small tube-like structure. So this is called the esophagus. Okay. So next function of esophagus is, I already told you, to movement of the food from mouth to the stomach. So what do you mean by peristaltic movement? The peristaltic movement is the movement of food materials from the upper side of esophagus to lower side of esophagus with the help of muscle contraction, which means, so when the muscle will be contracted, then So here we can see that this is the food particles, this is the that esophagus. So here what happened? Every time the muscle will contract here, then it will move here. Then again it will contract here, then move this side. So that type of movement with the help of muscle contraction is called a peristaltic movement. Okay, so this is the function of esophagus. Now where the food reaches? The food reaches to the stomach, from mouth to esophagus. So from the esophagus to the stomach, the food reaches. So the next organ is called a stomach. So this is the next organ which is involved in the nutrition in human beings. So what is the function of stomach? Stomach is the largest organ and it will expand when the food receives from the esophagus. So now where is the food? It ingested from the mouth, then it reaches the food pipe called esophagus, then finally it reaches the stomach. So when the food reaches, the breakdown food reaches in the stomach, what happens? The stomach will expand its size. For what? To store the food materials. Okay, so this is the largest organ and it will be expanded when the food will be received. So in the stomach there are certain glands called the gastric glands will be present. So what do you mean by glands? So glands are certain organs which will produce some enzymes. So that is called the glands. So here gastric glands are present. The gastric glands will produce certain juices called gastric juices, or we can say some secretions or juices. Okay, so this will be produced by the gastric glands. So there are three different type of gastric juices will be produced by the gastric gland. So let's see what are the different type of gastric juices. So first one is called HCl, second one is called pepsin, and third one is called mucus. So let's see what is the function of HCl, what is the function of pepsin, and what is the function of mucus. So first gastric juice which is produced from the gastric gland is called HCl. Its function is to provide the acidic medium. So we know HCl is an acid. HCl is an acid. So it will provide the acidic medium inside the stomach. Why it is providing the acidic medium inside the stomach? To digest the food fastly, then to kill the bacteria, whatever the bacteria will come inside our stomach, and bacteria can cause so many diseases. So this HCl will kill all the bacteria which will come in the or which will present in the stomach. So that is the major function of HCl. So HCl is the gastric juices which is produced by the gastric gland which is present in the stomach. Okay, so second gastric juice is called pepsin. What do you mean by pepsin? The pepsin will helps to convert the protein into amino acid. So here also what is happening? Catabolism, which means the higher complex protein molecules will be divided into smaller particles called amino acids. Okay, so amino acids is the basic unit of protein. So multiple number of, which means multiple number of amino acid will combine together and forms the protein. Likewise, we can say cell is the basic unit of life. A group of cells together to form tissue. Like that only, a group of amino acid will together to form the protein. So what is the function of pepsin? Pepsin will helps to reduce or degrade the protein molecule into its simpler forms called amino acids. Okay, so next is called a mucus, the third gastric juice which helps in the digestion from gastric gland is called the mucus. So what is the function of mucus? I already told you there is HCl, it is an acid. Acid have the capacity to kill the living cells. Okay, if we put some acid in our hand, what happens? Our exterior, the epidermis will be destroyed. Okay, so if it is inside also, then there is a chance of destruction of our own cell. So this mucus lining will protect the lining of the stomach from the attack of HCl. Okay, so that is the function of mucus. It is the inner lining of stomach. It helps in the overall protection of the stomach wall. So next organ is called a small intestine. So after the digestion of the food in the stomach, what happens? The food will goes to the small intestine. Small intestine is a tubular like structures which is present in the abdomen. Okay, so after the complete digestion is also happen in the small intestine. So after that what happens? The liver will helps in the digestion process. How the liver will helps? Liver is an organ which is present in the tract of digestive system. Okay, and it is also considered as called a gland. Why? It will produces certain secretions. That's why it is considered as a gland, and also it is considered as an organ. Okay, so what are the different type of secretions of liver? First one is called bile juice, and second one is called bile salt. So function of bile juice and bile salt. So the bile juice will helps to make the food alkaline. So I already told you the stomach will contain HCl, the stomach will contain HCl acid, and it makes the food acidic. Okay, why it is making the food acidic? For helping for the digestion. Okay, so next what happens? The digested food material will come to the small intestine. From when it reaches the small intestine, the liver will produce certain bile juices, so it makes the food into alkaline condition. So next is called a bile salt. What is the function of bile salt? Bile salt will reduce or degrade the larger fat molecules into simple one for the digestion process. So that process is called a emulsification. Emulsification of fat, which means the complex fat molecules will be divided into simple molecules. So that process is called a emulsification or the breakdown of fat molecules. So next is called a gallbladder. So what is the function of gallbladder? Whatever the liver is producing, whatever the bile juices and whatever the bile salt, it will be stored in the gallbladder for the next digestion process. If in some person what happens, the gallbladder will be removed. So in that person's what happened? So the digestion of the food materials or the emulsification of fat will be not that much properly conducting, because the bile salt and bile juice is not stored in the gallbladder. So the next organ is called a pancreas. So what is the function of pancreas? So here pancreas will helps to convert the protein into amino acid with the help of trypsin. So the trypsin is an enzyme which is produced from the pancreas, and it helps to convert the protein into amino acid. Then a lipase. What do you mean by lipase? Lipase is lipid digesting enzyme. Lipase, lipid digesting enzyme. If it is ASE, it is called an enzyme. So lipase will convert the emulsified fat that we got from the small intestine, or that after the emulsification process, that fat will be converted into fatty acid and glycerol with the help of pancreas. Then starch will be converted into glucose, protein will be converted into amino acid. Apart from that, the pancreas have the function to produce certain hormones called insulin. That insulin will convert the glucose level in the blood. Okay, it is produced from the islet, beta cells of islet of Langerhans of pancreas. So the next organ is called the small intestine. We have already told that in small intestine what happened? The complete digestion, the complete degradation will happen in the small intestine. And we have seen different type of glands and organs which helps the small intestine to degrade the food materials like liver, pancreas, gallbladder, etc. So here we can see in the small intestine, we can see a small structure called villi. Villi is a finger-like projection. It is a finger-like projection which is present in the inner area of our digestive system. Okay, so the villi cannot be seen in, or not only in the digestive system, it can be seen in the other area of our body part. Okay, respectively in the reproductive tract of females, we can see the microvilli. Okay, so this microvilli, what's the function of microvilli? It helps to increase the surface area. If the inner lining is like this, the surface area will be very less. If the inner lining will be like this, finger-like projection, the maximum surface area or the maximum surface area can be compacted into a one places. Okay, so this is called a microvilli. Then function is called it can improve the surface area. Second function is called it can absorb maximum number of food materials, digested food particles and biomolecules into the blood vessels. Okay, so absorb the maximum food materials. That is the second function of microvilli. So the third function of microvilli is to absorb the food materials and can donate it to the blood vessels. What do you mean by blood? Blood is the connective tissue. Blood helps the Blood helps to transport all the materials from tip to toe. It reaches all the cells. Okay, so the food materials that we collected with the help of microvilli from the intestine, it reaches to the blood vessels. Then from the blood vessels, it reaches to the blood capillaries. It reaches to the blood. Then the blood will carry out all the food materials from our tip to toe. Okay, so this is the function of small intestine. So maximum food will be absorbed here only. So the large intestine, next later what happened, the remaining food materials will go to the large intestine. Unabsorbed food materials, unabsorbed starch, protein, glucose, whatever it is, it will move to the large intestine. Okay, so then later what happens, the rest of the food will be removed by the anus. Okay, as a waste materials. Okay, so this is all about the nutrition in the digestive system of human beings. Stay tuned for the next video.